So, Jordan and Jonathan, thank you so much for stopping by to talk to me more about your documentary, Cosplay Universe.
Glad to be here. Thank you so much, Vic.
Yeah, thanks so much. Excited to chat.
No problem, no problem. The first question I have for you guys is, what inspired you to create a documentary about cosplay?
Jordan, you want to start?
Sure. Um, yeah, the inspiration was that um, let's see, we had made these two other documentary projects. One was called She Makes Comics, all about the history of women in the comic book industry. And while making that documentary in like 2013, 14, we heard some really amazing stories from this cosplayer named Wendy Pini, who's not only a cosplayer, she's also the writer of a really popular independent comic called ElfQuest. And she just told us these really awesome stories of how she was in the costuming masquerades of San Diego Comic Con from back in the 1970s. And we were like, whoa, there's this whole history and story of cosplay that we had never heard of. And it sounded like a very different, awesome, swinging times in that it was like the 70s and clothing seemed optional. So my filmmaking partner Patrick and I at the time were like, whoa, maybe we could I would be curious to fill in the gaps and see really where did cosplay come from because it's such a really cool art form. And then the other main catalyst was while making this documentary about Chris Claremont's X-Men, we met some really talented X-Men cosplayers named Lauren Matesic, who now goes by Lauren Saint Laurent. And she's Lauren from the film, the Lauren of Castle Corsetry. And she filled us in that around the time we met her for making this other movie, that the cosplay community was both excited and also equal parts frustrated with the show Heroes of Cosplay that had just come out. And because Heroes of Cosplay was awesome and then it came on the Sci-Fi Channel, so it got like the word out more about cosplay, but at the same time, it didn't fully reflect what a lot of cosplayers saw cosplay to be, which is, challenging yourself artistically, creating awesome art projects with your friends. So we just started chatting with her and she became a producer on the project. And myself, my partner Patrick, and her were all like, let's try to tell the story of where the evolution of cosplay. And then along the way, we met Jonathan, who got involved because he also just thought the concept was really cool. And I'll let Jonathan take over.
Yeah, so Jordan, and did you ever see the movie, Vic? You ever share the movie The Big Lebowski?
Yeah.
So in the movie, there's a character, legendary character played by Jeff Bridges called the Dude. Well, there's an actual real dude, and he is as crazy as the character in the film, if not more. But he's from the same town that Jordan and Patrick are from, and he, for some reason, randomly lived across the street from me, and said, "You know what? You should meet these kids. They're making some cool films." And I'm literally, it's the only person he ever introduced me to, and we've been working together pretty much straight for like 7, 8 years, doing more be 10 probably by now, right? Making films, and they come up with good concepts, and I sometimes will get funding, or I'll connect them with distributors, or I'll help on the creative. On this one, when Patrick, uh, Jordan's partner, got his own feature film and couldn't really finish the idea they had for the history of cosplay, I jumped in and said, look, this is such a vibrant modern day story. I'm happy to jump in with you, Jordan, and help figure it out. And so he was cool about it. And that's what we did for the last 6, 7 years. We've just been basically trying to hone the story in, figure out how to get all these amazing characters from some of the best American cosplayers to cut to the idea came up. I was producing a movie with a Japanese rock star named Yoshiki, who's been X Japan. They were making a movie about that I produced called We Are X, which is a fantastic watch. And his people mentioned to me there was a convention in Nagoya, Japan, which basically had all the best cosplay teams from all over the world come compete. Sounded amazing. he was able to come on board and help us as a producer and get us to Nagoya, Japan. At which point Jordan connected with the American team, who brought us into their world. And then when Jordan got there, he found this incredible situation with the Mexican team and the Italian team, kind of a weird love triangle, if you will, which became a big part of our storyline. So it's, and then you just get better and better people as you go along. And you know what they say about documentaries, you don't necessarily ever stop them. You just kind of abandon them at a certain point. And we just kind of had a lot of time between, we randomly had 2 bankruptcies on the film, an international and a domestic, as we were making it. And then COVID hit, and we wanted to wait to get this out so people could see it live at a theater. So we had a lot of extra time to really make this movie all it can be. And from what we're hearing from the people who see it, both fans of the genre and outside, it's that, we did what we needed to do and took time, and just, it's a really fine film now.
Wow, that's quite a journey you both had, creating and getting this documentary out there.
I would say so.
Yeah, it's well done as well. You guys put in a great amount of time to showcase not only from the cosplay side but also the history side, which I appreciate it so much, because I know a lot of people that are cosplayers, and I didn't realize in depth of what they do.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah.
deep. And for me, there's a number of different levels to it, right? There's the craftsmanship of it with one of our characters, Svetlana, who turned, much like her and Yaya, turned their fandom into a way to make a living, which is the best thing you could do in life, right? Something that you love becomes your job. What's better than that? So the craftsmanship that Svetlana and her boyfriend Benny put forth, and many other people, and Lauren with the the corsets that she started with, and then what she's evolved to, and Yaya, her line of stuff, that on its own is enough. But the psychological level of what cosplay does for people who want to try on different personas, different sexual personas, whatever it may be, was the real fascination for me of the psychology of what this environment provided for people. So it worked on so many different levels, and that's why the myriad of people we follow and the stories they came up with, it's kind of amazing, really.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And speaking of Yaya and some of the other cosplayers, how receptive were they for the interviews, like getting their story out there? Was there any hesitant to getting their stories out there?
Jordan?
Yes. Well, when we first reached out to Yaya, we reached out to her because we really respected and were influenced by her initial. She had at the time, this was like 2015, she has put out a bunch of panels where she explains like where cosplay came from and the evolution. So she herself is like an archivist and a documentarian for cosplay, and has been running these panels for a long time. And that was one of the initial inspirations for our project, like kind of just listening to a lot of the panels, and that's what we were up to do, try to make this film that a lot of people could watch and understand where cosplay came from. So our initial ask for Yaya was like, we wanted to sit down with her and have her kind of share, where it all came from. And basically it somewhat evolved over time. We kept following up with her, and pretty soon at some point she became a subject in the film itself, because we realized that her story was so emblematic of the cosplay itself, and that she originally was born in Asia and eventually came over to America, where she had this like moment at Anime Expo 1999 that cosplay was a thing you could do, and she kind of like grabbed the bull by its horn. So we just saw that the story of cosplay and Yaya's own life mirrored each other so much that we kept following up with her and really wanted to share that story of how her mother never for most of our life did not really accept the art form to be something serious. And we just felt that in a lot of ways is the journey of many cosplayers. And it felt important to share because, cosplayers just want to be accepted for, this art form that they put all of themselves into. So it was an ever evolving thing with Yaya, and I think everybody that's in the film, we just thought what they were doing was so cool that we kind of followed up and put our cameras on them because we, like you said, wanted to showcase this amazing art form and show it from all these different vantage points. So I think once people got our intention that we weren't really here to exploit, but rather to showcase and highlight the amazingness, people were pretty down to let us keep filming with them.
Awesome. Awesome. That's great to hear because that's a lot of information, not only from Yaya, but from other cosplayers that contribute to your story. So it was just amazing,
Thank you.
Storytelling just done right.
Yeah, we got
Wow,
lucky.
thank you.
We found stories, Vic, that we didn't expect to find. We were literally looking at Comic-Con, New York Comic-Con footage one day, and there's this 10-foot Hulkbuster guy walking, dominating the room at New York Comic-Con. I literally said to Jordan, dude, how do we find that guy? And not only do we find him, we went back from LA to Providence to interview him. He became, both him and Key, who was working for him as his associate, became two of the most interesting characters in the film. And we went back to interview him 3 times until we got into the depth of his Asperger's situation, where he really only felt like himself when he was in this costume. And what that struck me as on the psychology level we talked about, the empowering nature of cosplay and to put on a costume. I think, Jordan, the line is my favorite times in my life were when I was in a costume or something like that. And, me going to school in New Orleans and, learning about the lens of dress up through Mardi Gras and how the people, the culture of New Orleans have been doing cosplay every year at Mardi Gras and Halloween, like everybody else. But cosplay takes it to the next level. People love to step outside themselves. My wife even said, we went to a Halloween party in New Orleans, and she's like, I feel like I'm special when I'm dressed up. And I think that right there, for a very much non-cosplayer, strikes the chord of what cosplay does, right? It just allows people to step outside themselves and do something else, and live a different persona. So I think it's amazing that we were able to, that everybody shared their stories with us, because there were some powerful stories in there. And obviously we hope everybody watches it and find out what we don't take our word for it, so to speak.
Very true. Very true. And Jonathan, you touched a little bit about the COVID situation, trying to get the documentary out. Was the process hard going into the 2021, 2022 years to get it on streaming as well as the movie theaters?
Well, as I said before, we had a partner, a domestic partner, originally, who basically had this film set up at Netflix, and we were about to launch on Netflix. We weren't really ready, but if Netflix says, hey, we like your film, we want to put it on, Jordan and I tore our hair out to try to get the film ready. As we were in that process and we were getting close to delivering a cut, we found out the company has gone bankrupt, was going bankrupt. So we realized we couldn't deliver the film because that was not going to work with our investors. Cut to the beginning of the pandemic, we're getting close to finishing another cut. And we finished the cut and we're delivering it to the international distributor. And literally, as COVID starts, the international distributor goes bankrupt. And they'd already put out a couple territories. We had delivered the cut, actually. They had delivered some territories, put some territories out there. And so then it was like, okay, it's going to take us a year at least to get the film out of receivership, get it back from the international distributor, make another deal for it. It took obviously almost 2 years, which is what the pandemic took. So the timing of that actually kind of worked out perfect for us because we weren't really ready to put it out based on the legal situation. So we took our time. The ending, which I don't know, Jordan, if we want to do spoiler alert or not, but the ending got so much better with this character Key we talked about. I think it's worth telling the story, Jordan, about your interaction with Key and what happened with the end of the movie because I think it's powerful. Go ahead.
Yes, I will do a non-spoiler alert version, but right, we had filmed with Tom from Extreme Costumes, which allowed us to end up meeting Key, and we went on their journey Anime Expo, and we just got this. One thing that I think is really cool about the film is that we've got a bunch of different generation of cosplayers' experiences, and Key, who we discovered by meeting Tom, to me represents like a pretty modern version of the cosplayer, like a Gen Z cosplayer. And Key, like Yaya, was also up against like her parents and their parents not understanding what cosplay means to them and how it's this art form you can discover all kinds of different hidden parts of yourself, including like which gender you want to identify with. So the final scene of the film is this like pretty climactic conversation with Key and their family, and it only came about because we had this extra time to complete the film as strongly as possible with some of the delays that occurred. So delays were frustrating, and they allowed us to really end the film in a powerful way.
It did. It was like a full circle thing, you know.
Yeah, totally. Full circle for sure. You'll have to check out the film if you're listening to understand what we're talking about.
Oh yes, and it was well done. Like that ending was just it was perfect. It was just like from the beginning to end, just from the story of that person. It was just like a book. You read from chapter one to the last chapter 30. It was just perfect.
Thank you. We definitely, Jonathan could attest to this too. I think probably the largest challenge of the movie was the editing and the sequencing of all the different stories, because the film flows really well, I think, and it feels like all these scenes belong together. But when you're editing the film and you can take it any direction, it many times did not flow at all. So that was definitely probably one of the biggest challenges of the film, not just gathering all the scenes, but just getting one scene and one story to kind of just keep a good filmic flow.
Yeah, and Vic, picture a huge cork board with index cards of many colors and trying to patch those scenes together to see what works next to each other and how to cut down one and make it, pop. And then another comes in, a new scene, and where does that go and how does it work? It's quite a process. I think Jordan and I learned a lot from that process.
That's great to hear, and hard work pays off. That you guys did a fantastic documentary, fantastic movie.
Thank you so much.
So rolling off after that ending, my next question is there discussions about doing a part two, a second documentary about cosplay, or is it after post-COVID?
I mean, we haven't talked about it because the movie's just getting out there yet. I mean, there's obviously a lot more stories and a lot you could do with it. We wanted to make a film that was true to the fans, but also give something for the people that don't know anything about cosplay and may disregard these people as just kind of nutty people who dress up. Halloween is once a year, but in this world it's every other weekend. There's a con and people dress up. So for me, I would love the aspect of doing more international work. People like Svetlana and some of these other international cosplayers, and it'd be great to do a more international version of it. It's just a question of time and money to be able to execute that concept.
Cool.
Yeah, same. I'm drawn towards telling some version of this that could get us into more international territories and exploring different cosplay cultures that have emerged in different regions. But as John said, we are not quite in production at the moment, in that finding the resources and the path to make that happen, it's a process, as we've learned from this last thing. 7 years to do that, but I'd love to.
Awesome. Awesome. It's great to hear. Just so much stories to hear and see. And then when you did the cosplay event in Japan where it had the multiple teams, I was like, wow, I didn't know they had different countries with their own cosplay teams representing the country in that one event. I thought that was very interesting because I was like, how did that start in Mexico? How did it start in Italy? It boggles the mind. It just shows that there's a worldwide phenomenon out there, not only for cosplay but just creating and designing and imagination.
Jordan, how old is the World Cosplay Summit? How long has that been in business for?
I don't have the exact date, but I think around the 2000s it must have begun. So yeah,
Right.
when we attended, they had about 30 countries. Maybe it was like 29 countries. I think
Right.
at this point they're up to, I gotta look it up, but it might be like 50
Well, I think
countries.
this year they were a little scaled back still after COVID because travel has been a little weird. Japan's obviously very tight. But yeah, it's a growing phenomenon. There's no doubt about it, Vic. Um, so we're excited to have the film out there and excited for you to put us on blast and spread the word about the film.
Of
Yeah,
course.
yeah. It's I looked it up. It's 2002 was the first one.
Yeah, so 20
So
years.
yep,
We did 20th anniversary this year, -2 for COVID, I guess.
yep, the 20th anniversary just happened. So it's kind of cool that the film could come out and help them uh add a little bit more, recognition to that awesome thing that they've created. Because you're right, their whole mission is bringing the world together through Japanese culture, and it's a really special event that they put on to connect the world.
Yep.
Perfect, perfect. And last question: where can our fans find you on social media? So to keep in touch, just if there's another Cosplay Universe or other projects you may be doing.
Well, Jordan, go ahead with the site first, the social media site for us.
Yeah. You can follow us at Cosplay Universe Movie. That's on Instagram and TikTok, as well as Facebook. And then on Twitter, we're Cosplay Film. And there's more information too at cosplayuniversemovie.com. Yeah, I would stick there to find out what we're up to next. And please give us a follow. We live for people to check out the movie and then tag us and let us know what they think. And of course, the movie is available on Amazon Prime, Apple TV, Xbox, Vudu, and Google Play. So you can just search for Cosplay Universe and it'll come up, and you can watch it you can either rent or purchase it. But it's pretty inexpensive. It's definitely worth it. It's like you can rent it for like about $4. And please, we'd love for you to check it out and let us know what you think.